My baseboards are going to be 7.5 inches tall, so I'm just estimating, because you don't want to read down here at the floor. You really want to read near the top to capture that angle as true as it could be. So here's how it works. The wall actually reads in true angles a 132.4 on, and most of these digital angle finders are very similar. There's a miter 1, miter 2 button. I'm going to be demonstrating just the miter 1 today, and you hit it, and it says that we're at 23.8. And then I'm just going to take a measurement here, and I'm going to call that 21. I'm over measuring on purpose, and I'll show you why in a minute. Now we go for the inside corner. Same thing, open it just a little bit wider than the corner, and it's this area right here fits into this corner, so I'm just seating it into the corner and then pressing until it comes flush here and flush here. So you want to make sure that this edge is flush with this wall and this edge is flush with this wall. And that's all I'm doing. Really nothing skillful about it. I'm going to turn it on. You do have this button here. See how the reading's upside down? That will reverse 180 so that I can read it right side up. I'm going to put it in there. Let's see, open up just a little larger. And let it seat in the corner. So I got 23.2. Then I'm going to take a quick measurement out here, letting it run along again. And we're at, let's just say 35.5. And I'm not going to bore you. Essentially, all I'm going to do is go around the room and take these measurements exactly like I just showed you. When I say long, this actually measured 34.5, but I'm letting it go 35.5. I'm going to cut it long and then come back and custom fit this. And I'll explain why. All right, we've taken our measurements, taken our angles, and you can see the result of that up on the screen. I'll go through that in a minute. So before I start, when you look at YouTube and see the different baseboards and crown molding videos, you're going to see one of two ways that the baseboard will be cut. It'll either be cut in the vertical position like this, or it'll be cut laying flat like this. So I'm going to cut it flat. So we're going to take those measurements, and I'll bring you in close to the saw. And we're going to tilt the saw blade. This is called the bevel of the saw. When you slide it this way, this is called the angle. So we're going to leave the angle set on 0, and we're going to change the bevel to whatever degree is indicated on the sheet that pops up on the screen for you. Okay, I've tried to get you in close. This is the back of the saw. This is the bevel control here. And there's a knob back here that I loosen, which allows me to tilt the saw head to and from. You can see that indicated here by the this indicator, this red indicator. And it goes from 0 to up to 15 and so forth. So what I'm going to do is temporarily shut that and then go back to my paper and look at it. I'll pop it up on the screen for you. So the first cut is the B is for butt, which means I'll show you what the butt cut is. It's just a flush cut on the end of the board. It's 21 inches. It's going to be an OSC, which is an outside corner. And the bevel is going to be at 23.8 degrees. So, I showed you on the digital protractor angle finder how to get that how we got the 23.8 degree. So I'm going to set that on 24. Its reading, our reading was 23.8, but we're going to use 24. So I go 5, 10, 15, 20. There's 25. So I'm going to come back 1 and set that on 24. Now let's talk about the angles for a second. So you got 23.8 in there, 23.2, 22.6, 23.8. The 0.8, you know, you're 2/10 away from being a full degree. So you'll never see that 2/10. So always round up, just like the old standard. So in this case, it's 23.8. I'm not going to try to fool around with finding the 0.8 here. I'm just going to set it on 24. If it was like it was 23.2, I'm not going to deal with the 0.2. I'm just going to put it on 23 because you'll never see the 0.2. Anywhere around 5 degrees, I'm sorry, 5/10 of a degree, you'll potentially start seeing that. But this is paint grade. It's not stain grade. So your paint grade, you're going to be caulking. And this doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to look like a professional job. Nice, clean cuts, nice, clean installation. And really the star of the show is two things. It's the miter saw that is tuned in and set accurately. And it's also the digital protractor. Those are the two stars of the show. If you're guessing angles or you don't know the angle, this is irrelevant. This is no good to you. If you know the correct angle, then this is gold. This is a jackpot. So we've gone over our sheet, our measurements and our angles. We've set our miter bevel at the 24 as previously saw. And now we'll start looking at the sheet again. I'll pop it up on the screen. So we're going to have a butt. I'm at the top of the sheet, by the way, starting at the very top measurement. We're going to have a butt. The B is for butt. It'll be 21 inches long. And then we're going to have an outside corner at the 24, actually the 23.8, which we discussed will be set on 24. So we've got all that set up. I've got the board on the miter saw. And just another tip that I find useful, you may not, you do what works for you. You may have a miter saw that only bevels one way, either left or to the right. This one is a dual bevel compound miter saw, meaning that the bevel head on this saw bevels both ways. It bevels to the left and the right. I hate setting the bevel and then switching. So I know I need a 24. It's a lot easier for me personally just to leave this bevel in the 24 position and rotate the wood in relation to what we need. So an outside corner, if you can see this board, an outside corner is going to come in and it's going to go this way. So you'll have a point out here that'll come back at a 24-degree angle and it'll stop here. And then this part will be what's touching the wall. This part will be gone. And so you can see that if I need this bevel and the saw is at this bevel, then it's real easy for me to take this board and just simply rotate it to the other side and cut a bevel. So I've done that, rotated, and now I'm just going to make the cut. Just make sure your board's firmly up against this fence, laying flat. The other thing about laying flat is you have far more control over keeping this board here against this fence. So hopefully you can see that. This is an outside corner. I'm left-handed, so I naturally want to work the room from left to right. And that's why I started on the very left-hand side of the bay window and worked my way across. You may not prefer to work that way. You may prefer to work, you may find it easier to work from right to left. A lot of people do. So I just want to mention that. So I'm really just starting at the top of that list that we made, and I'm just working down, knowing that as I go, I'm working left to right. So then we said we're going to cut this board to length at 21, and I'm going to go in here to 21 and make a mark. So this will be our butt cut. And it doesn't matter how you place this because this is going to be a butt cut. So butt cut means we're going to take the saw bevel and move it back to 0. Same way we did before, just opposite direction, 0. Tighten it down. The angle on the saw hasn't changed at all, so it's still on 0. So I've got 0 and 0. Then I'm going to move this over till I get to the 21-inch mark. And I'm just going to make the cut. To make sure everything's supposed to be. This is firmly on the table and up against the fence here. And then I'm just going to bring the saw down and make the 21 cut. All right. So if you look back at the drawing, I'll pop it on the screen. We're on that first line at the top. You've got a butt cut, which is just a simple 90-degree cut that we just made. And then we have an outside corner, which is the bevel going to the outside. And that was at 24 degrees. We'll cut the rest of these pieces exactly like I just cut this one, tilting the bevel in accordance to what is on our list. And then we'll go and mark these to length and make the cut. We're in here to do a test fit on the first piece. Just as a disclaimer, if I were doing this not for a DIY video and doing it for, showing you how I do it in production, it would not be done this way. But I feel like I need to sort of forget a lot of the things that we do in the trade to help a DIYer, do-it-yourselfer, have success in getting the same look, same professional look. So first issue, it's really not an issue. It's just a natural way things work. If you noticed, when we took the measurement with the digital protractor, digital angle finder, the arm on the protractor stretches way out here. If you notice on this board, I can almost get the tip of this pencil in this gap. It will actually stand up in there like that. And obviously what's happening is this board is straight. When the drywall was put up, there's probably not much nailed back here. And when you go to install this, there's probably, there's nothing behind there to nail to, which is an issue when you do trim. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fit it so that we know the distance from here over to here and make that accurate cut. And then we can fudge this in a little bit. And I'm pressing on this pretty hard to get it to go in. Plus, if you push it all the way in, it's going to look not so great. It's going to look goofy because your eye is going to pick up on the fact. And then the other issue is then you're going to have to caulk this, and you don't want too much caulk in there, something like that maybe, but not that. So how we mark these is I've got this piece, let me pull it back out, just on the floor, and I've got it shoved into this corner like that. And then I take a scrap piece of wood and I put it on the opposing wall, and it doesn't have to be level, it just has to sit on top of this board. And then I take the pencil and I go behind the board and I make a mark. And that mark, you can see this, is where we need to cut. Well, we don't want to cut here again because we've got this angle like we want it. So I'm going to measure this pencil mark from right here over to this short point, and whatever that measurement is, I'm going to take that amount off the end of the board, straight 90-degree cut. And then I'll bring it back one last time to make sure it fits. In a production environment, what I would do is take my tape measure and simply measure from here to here. But quite honestly, it takes some experience to figure out exactly where to measure, because a lot of people think you just measure to where the corner meets, and really that's not true. You want to measure a little bit past that and still do the test fit. A lot of guys don't even do that. They'll go, oh, it's paint grade. Why are you wasting all that time? Well, you got to think about where you're at. I'm not in a closet doing this. I'm on a bay window in the master bedroom. So I want to make sure at least this bay window is as tight as I can get it. And the guy that I'm doing this for is a retired contractor, so he will be happy. He will be looking at this long after the house is built. So I want to do good by him. He's paying us good money to take our time. And so that's what we're going to do. All right, guys. So here's the mark that you saw me make earlier. And really, remember the opposing wall was coming this way. So we made a mark. So this point right here is where I want to measure. And I want to measure from here to the tip of this short point. And then whatever that measures is what we're going to take off the end of the board. I'm going to lay this down on here, line the tip of the ruler up with the edge, and I'm going to get 5/8. So 5/8 is what I need to take off of this end, which is the butt cut. And I'm just going to simply come in here at 5/8 and make a mark. It's like I tell folks, measuring is a skill. And when you do enough of this, you can measure just the wall. It takes seconds. We know exactly how much to bring it out over that, where those two angles meet at the edge, the outside corner. We cut it. We don't test fit it. We just put it together and nail it. Here, a tip would be to always measure long. There's always, if you measure long, there's always a way to correct that, either by cutting the board a couple of times as a DIYer to get it to fit, or there's some tricks you can do with the inside corner. If you're working off an inside corner, especially a 90-degree inside corner, and you're cutting miters like this, you can also trim back the drywall just a little bit to fit it. There's tons of things you can do. But here, just to get you through a project, I would just measure like I did here. Measuring that wall with that scrap piece like we did is going to be exactly where that cut needs to be, and you won't have to worry about measuring it. So that's a way to do it, and just a tip for you there. All right, folks, we are finished with line 1. I'll pop it up on the screen so you can see it. We made our butt cut, 21 inches long, and then the outside corner at 23.8, which we set this all at 24. All right, folks, we're on line 2. We're finished cutting and fitting line 1. So on line 2, we have an outside cut and an inside cut. One tip for all you DIYers out there is go ahead and make the inside cut first, and then it'll be easier to fit because we'll slide the inside cut into the wall, and then we'll mark for the outside cut rather than trying to measure that, which will get us completely accurate with where we need to cut. So I'm going to make sure the saw is at 23, and I've already moved it in position at 23. And just like we did in the beginning of the video. So I'm going to make this inside cut, which is going to be a slanting cut towards the inside of the wall. And slide this over, line it up, make sure it's flattened against the fence, bring it down. And all I'm trying to do is save as much board as I can by cutting on the end. Go ahead and make that cut. Everything's flat and up against the fence. Got that inside corner cut, just like we did seconds ago. I'm going to take this and let it come into this corner over here. So I just made sure that long point is touching that corner, just visually looking at it. And then here, we're going to do the same trick we did on the other wall, and we're just making sure that we haven't moved the board. I'm going to take this piece of scrap, place it on the opposing wall, like such. Kind of press down on it, grab my pencil, and just mark where those two intersect. So that's it. All right, still on line 2. I'll pop it up there on the screen for you. We've made the inside cut on line 2 at 23 degrees, and now we're going to make the outside cut that we just marked at 24. So I'm at 24 degrees on the bevel. So here's the mark that we made earlier. And essentially, it is this portion of the mark that we're concerned about right here. So if I just put a little mark there, it's where this arrow points to right here. Yeah, that's going to be the outside cut. So the cut will come, this way to form that outside corner, meaning it's going to angle away from the corner this way. So there's our mark. We're going to be coming out like this. And again, this is not the way I'd do it if I were in trim carpentry mode, but as a homeowner, these kind of cuts can throw you for a loop. This portion of the square on that mark, on where that arrow was pointing to, and make a little mark like that. And this is called just transferring a mark. Then I'm going to transfer this mark to the bottom. And I'm just going to make one more little mark right. Let me see if you can see that. Yep, you can. Mark it right there. So that's the transference of the mark to the bottom of the board. And we're going to bring in, see if I can demonstrate this. We're going to bring the blade so that it lines up with the bottom of that line across there, just like this, in a miter of, what did I say that was, 24. And so that miter being lined up like that, at 24, this part right here will be the tip of the point on that angle, that outside angle. And we're going to make the cut. We cut the outside corner. I did about a 30-second longer than it's marked. Again, go long. You can always trim off just a scotch. That is the inside, and there's your outside. So what I'm doing, I'm just kind of concentrating on this outside corner right now. I'm going to take this other piece and stick it in here. Whoops, not that piece. I'm going to take this other piece here, which is the first piece that we cut, put it into the wall, see where we line up. Let's see. Right off the bat, that's a darn good fit right there. This will pull in at the bottom, but what I'm really looking for is just this connection right here. And I'm making sure that this miter is coming off of there, coming off of here, going back to the wall. And then is on this point, is centered in this point, this intersection, this corner, outside corner, is possible, and that this miter is going to close and everything's going to look good. All right, guys, we have all the pieces cut, and I just want you to think about what we did so far is we have used our angle finder to find these two outside corners over here, the two inside corners. And we know that when we made the cuts, after reading those angles, those digital angles, that the cuts were going to be true to what the wall is actually telling us. We discussed the gaps over here and how we're going to need some caulk and to do some things with. I have cut all these pieces, obviously. I've gone around and done a test fit, just meaning like you saw earlier in the video, is just putting one end in the spot, one end in the spot, and just seeing how they meet. So I got some comments in my last baseboard video talking about, well, I don't know how to glue, and showing people how to glue boards together for outside corners is ridiculous. Homeowner ain't going to do it. I disagree. I really do. And I think the homeowner, the DIYer, is a lot smarter than people give them credit for. People in the trade give the non-pros credit. I think the DIYer, if they're willing to spend the time and a tiny bit of money, I am confident that the do-it-yourselfer is going to be able to glue these outside joints together. Now you're going to need to get the products I'm going to show you in a minute, and you're going to need to practice. There's no other way around it. It's kind of difficult to learn, but it takes maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes to get it down. And when I say difficult, the only difficult part about it is lining the edges up correctly and then putting pressure on the glue joint, because this particular glue sets up in 10 seconds and cures anywhere from 30 seconds to a minute. All right. And so now I've got this clamped. The reason I clamp it is because not Jed clamp it, but Vice clamp it. When I clamp it, you don't want it moving around. I've seen plenty of the pros I work with do it without clamping it. They have a special way of doing it. You don't have to, this isn't the setup I'm recommending. This could be the end of a tabletop, or it could be the end of anything, that you have where you can place a board on, clamp it down, and still have room out here to, manipulate the board to glue. Here is the activator, what's called the activator for the glue. Here's the glue. The activator goes on one piece of wood. The glue goes on the other. This is called CA glue, by the way. I forgot to mention that. And it's great for MDF, some woods, and especially where the joint is not going to be stressed. So, and it creates a very strong joint. So activator, glue, one on one piece, one on the other. And what happens is when you touch those two pieces of wood together, they bond and quickly. So when you touch the activator piece to the glued piece, it's going to bond in approximately 10 seconds, and it's going to set in approximately 30 seconds to a minute. So you got to make sure you're lined up when those two pieces of wood touch. In a test run, I'm pretending there's glue and activator already on the wood, and then I use my thumbs to line up this edge. And remember, if you hold it back like this, only the edge is touching, not the full board. So I'm going to hold it back here. I'm going to kind of jiggle in position till I line that up. And then I'm going to put a little more pressure where my thumbs are. And I'm going to swing it in position to where it's going to be. And that's a good dry run. That's exactly what I should be doing there. I'm going to take the activator, shake it. Just when you buy CA glue, I recommend getting it from FastCap when I put it on there. So I'm just going to, you really want to be sparing with this stuff. You don't want to get it on stained grade wood. You can discolor the surface area. So now I've got the mitered in for that outside corner. And I'm just going to put some glue, CA glue, on this board. If I got you in frame, looks like I do. And I put way too much. It's just a habit. But that's that. So now I'm going to use my thumbs like we talked about. I'm out here, just the edges touching, and I'm going to line up as best I can. Put a little bit more pressure on my thumbs and bring it down till it touches. And I'm not doing a very good job. All right, that's it right there. Hold it. 10 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, she's glued. I did okay up here, not great. I missed the top. Bottom looks great. The seam here looks great. I'll need to do a little sanding on this. So I didn't screw it up, but I could have done better. And we're going to do what's called springing in the middle. So I've cut the middle just a little bit longer than what it needs to be, so that those mitered corners can really dig into each other. And then we'll spring it in so that it becomes flat to the wall, and we'll install it. So I'm just going to slide this in position. I want to focus on this corner here, making sure that this long point is in this corner really well. Get the corner in as nice as I can get it. Yeah, it looks really good. Then I'm going to run across here. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but it lights up when it hits a stud. And then I've got 3 lights lit up here. So then I take my brad nailer, line it up, and make sure I'm still good over here. Make sure the end over here, my left hand is good, and tack it. And I'll go ahead and tack it in another spot. One tip, especially with smaller baseboards, if you notice over here, there is a gap where the drywall ends and the floor begins. If you're doing smaller baseboards and you hit down here where the drywall ends, or you even go down here to where the plate is at the bottom, you will cause the baseboard to tilt out in the room. So I try to keep everything, all my nails in this region. Occasionally you'll have to nail down here for whatever reason, but you want to try to keep it here. You also don't want to shoot nails. I don't shoot nails, I should say, into the detail, because it makes the holes harder to fill, in my opinion. So if you want easy to fill holes, this is a good way to do it. So I've got that in good position. Still got a little flexibility out here. Then I want to focus my attention on this corner out here. And it's a booger. I'm going to tell you it's a booger, because I've got these natural gaps where the wall curves in. Wall curves in. I'm going to see how much that is. And it's not because of the angle, it's because of the wall. That's a little over 1/4 of an inch. It's got to be taken care of. So back here, I'm looking really good against the wall. Up here on the point, I'm looking really good. But this mess in the middle, it's kind of a disaster. And then I'm going to go in here. I'm going to pray there's some kind of stud in this area. There's kind of a stud out there. There's one right here. And nothing till the end. So I'm going to switch to the 15 gauge because I want to put a lot of strength in this corner. So we're going to try to take some of this gap out of here. Let's see where we're at. So right in there, I have a stud right in here. There's not much of a stud there, or it's getting, yeah, I'm over too far, so I'm going to press in again. I hit it, but it's too strong. That thing is really strong coming from this tip to here. So I'll try another technique called scissor nailing. And I don't think it's going to be very effective, but it's highly effective on crown molding. But essentially, you can shoot the nail gun this way and then turn and shoot it this way, like this, in an open scissor pattern. And sometimes it'll pull it a little tighter, so I'm going to try that. Push it in, do that, turn it, helped a tiny bit. So we're down to 3/16. Took a fat 16th out of it, and we are good to go there. But I can get a little pressure on it. And that looks good. So we'll go to the other corner and fit that one in. So we're on the other side, same process. Let me fast forward this one because this is, you're probably getting really bored of dealing with this. I'm going to focus again on the inside over here and on the point. So my first goal is to bring this thing to the point, get it nice and snug. See where we're at over here. We'll need a little bit of room over here. So I'm going to take this big piece and I'm going to work towards your end because you're closer to my right. And I'm just going to let the tip of this piece go in, touch. Then when we talk about springing, I'm actually going to grab this board, pull it out, let the end dig in, like that. And then you have a spring action that happens here, and it just springs in like that. The angles worked out really nice. That's stained grade quality right there, folks. Okay folks, I'm going to give you a demonstration on coping. If I were a DIYer and I just had a weekend project or a small project with baseboards, I'd recommend just going and continuing the mitering process like you saw around the bay window. It's going to give you a professional look. You're going to be happy with it. If you want to go a step further and try a more advanced method of coping, coping is great for a lot of reasons. Number one, I don't have to read those inside corners on the 90s because this joint is very forgiving. You'll see in a minute. Creates a very, very tight fit, number two, and it also locks the joint in. You'll see in a minute how when we cope this and apply it to the baseboard, it actually locks this piece into the piece it's coping into. And you're not going to get separation of the joint like you would in a miter. However, if you miter properly, install like we've been doing, and caulk it, the chance of separation is minor, very minor. This is the saw that I use. I got this idea and this brand and this model from Spencer Lewis over at Insider Carpentry. He's a true pro. I'm hoping to be one day half as good as he is, but he recommended the barrel handle DeWalt jigsaw, and I'll put a link in the description below. And then this is a Collins coping foot, and what it allows you to do is when you get under the wood, it allows you to tilt up and down, side to side. It's a great tool for something like this, and really in truth all we're doing is coping this end, and then I'm going to straight cut this to remove it. So in the coping process, we want to remove all of this end, this visible MDF, and we want to wind up with a nice tight profile of the paint that's cut back from this edge so that when we slide this onto the baseboard, we get a nice tight fit. You'll see. I'll go ahead and cope it.